Hey, it's Mr. A, and we're in for another episode of Journal Time. All right, I need you to grab your journal, a pair of scissors, a pencil, and a glue stick. Once you have those supplies, I need you to walk your patooties over to the mailbox system and find 3 pages that are in between those teal sticky notes, and they look just like this. They are the 3 forms of major government. So we have monarchy, democracy, and dictatorship. So make sure that you've got all 3 of those pages. With your pencil and your journal, we need to open up to our table of contents, and in our table of contents we have 2 new things that we need to add. Page 19 was our human environment Lorax comparison, and we're going to add 3 new pages today. Pages 20 to 22 will be 3 major forms of government. So make sure that you write those down at this time, and then we're going to turn to page. You're doing great. All right, now that we're on page 20, let's take a look over here at our 3 notes pages. We need to glue them in order that they are numbered. So number 1 will go in first. We'll cut and trim, then number 2, and then number 3. So go ahead and just trim off the white space here. Just kind of cut around the edges, and then once we get them all the way glued, you're just going to need to glue them in vertically so that way they fit onto your journal page, because if you glue them like this, it's not going to fit. So make sure that you glue them up and down to look like that. Oh my goodness, you guys are like so awesome. Now that you've got those glued in, we're going to take a look at a couple of things on a slideshow here, and then we're going to go through and actually fill these in. So for right now, just kind of listen and follow along. So in 5th grade, you really need to know about 3 major forms of government. And the first major form of government that we live in is a democracy. And when we're talking about a democracy, the political authority, which means like how we live our lives, decisions that we make, it rests with the people. So amen to that. That means that we have a say. There's kind of 2 forms of democracy that we can think about. There's direct democracy, where people directly make the decisions. And we live in what's called an indirect democracy, where elected officials make our decisions. But in both examples, power rests within the people first and foremost, and that's what is important. Either people are making the decisions themselves or they're electing people to do so. So some examples might be the United States, Canada, parts of Australia, Germany. A lot of countries have a form of democracy, which personally we should probably think is the best, since that's what we live in. The second form of government that we're going to be looking at is a little opposite, and by a little I mean a lot, a dictatorship. And so if we know anything about a dictatorship, government is ruled by an individual who's referred to as a dictator. A dictatorship is often described as a non-democracy, so basically the opposite. And power is taken by force. So they ravage the area, they have strong militaries, they have lots of money, the people have no say and no right to vote, and this usually happens when a country is failing and just really not doing well economically. Some past examples that we might be familiar with: Germany, Italy during World War II, that's where Hitler came from, and Mussolini. Some modern day examples, because we still have dictatorships around the world: North Korea, Afghanistan, Cuba. There's lots of countries that unfortunately still have this very powerful, all say, all power kind of government. And then the third type of government that we need to be familiar with is a monarchy. And in a monarchy, the supreme power is given to a king or queen. So this was found more popularly in the Middle Ages, or like before the 1800s, so like 1700s, 1600s and before. But there are still some exceptions. There are still some countries that are monarchies today. So Great Britain is obviously the most popular, but Belgium, the Bahamas, other places as well. And Great Britain still has a king or queen, but they're more of a status symbol, which means they don't quite have as much power as they did back maybe 200 or 300 years ago. But power is still passed down through generation to generation, and the people usually don't get a whole lot of say in their leaders. Sometimes they vote, sometimes not. Depends on the kind of monarchy. So next, we need to take a look at our notes here. We're going to fill these in with our pencil, so just kind of follow along as we go through. So an example of a democracy in the United States: every 4 years we elect, the president, right, which is our main leader who oversees all forms of the government. Every state is in Congress is represented by 2 Senate members, and states also have at least 1. So some examples. Oh, look, it's my face. I made a decision to show you my face on accident. Oops. back to the notes. Some examples of decisions are if we were to build a new Buckeye Stadium, speed limits, what we learn in school, electing officials, all those sorts of things happen in a government of democracy. Next, let's take a look at dictatorship, because I just feel like it needs like a deep voice anytime we talked about a dictatorship, because that's what this picture kind of reminds me of, like total power, little people. All right, leaders are assumed by force, so they take their positions. They are not elected. Kim Jong-un is the current dictator for, yes, a very common and popular dictatorship country is North Korea, so he's in the news a lot. The people have no say and no vote, and the power is not easily won over, and there are about 50 countries with a dictatorship around the world. Some difficulties in a dictatorship: women almost always have 0% say or vote, like at all. Like men have a little, women nothing. Fear is the number one use of a dictator, absolute control over all aspects of life, and they even ban and guard a lot of things on the internet. Like your parents can set up blocks and things, but like everybody's blocked from certain things because they don't want people to have knowledge, because knowledge is power. All right, and last but not least, we're going to look down here at our monarchy. So leaders are passed down through and this would be known as the family bloodline. So what that means is basically if you are born into the family, the leadership will be passed down to you. Queen Elizabeth and Prince Charles are today's monarchs for, you guessed it, Great Britain. And so Prince Charles will end up taking the crown once Queen Elizabeth passes away. The people do have some say and some vote. Not all and not always, but they do have some. Power is not easily changed, and there are about 10 to 20 countries with a monarchy, but not a lot. Some examples of some other roles in a monarchy. So the prime minister is leader of the parliament, which is kind of like our Congress. Monarchies pass down through generations, very difficult for these countries to change, and power is more shared than a dictatorship, which is good. So all in all, in terms of our forms of government, it's just important to know the three main types of governments. So we have our democracy, we have our monarchy, and we have our dictatorship. So I want you to take a listen to this song here just to learn a little bit more. You're going to learn about one also called theocracy, but you don't need to know about that until a few grades later. But you guys are doing great. I'm so stinking proud of you. You got this.